Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh has called on the international community to create a, quote, united front to stop Israel's attacks in the Gaza Strip. The Prime Minister said this as Israel readies itself for a ground offensive on Gaza. Gaza received 17 more trucks of aid on Sunday amid acute shortage of essentials. The second batch of aid was delivered as 20 trucks were allowed to cross the Rafah border into Gaza on Saturday. The latest, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, speaking in Tel Aviv, has said the idea that Hamas offensive on October 7th happened without the help of Iran was laughable.
The United States Senate is a district. 10% of the United States had a bigger plane with all in the entire Senate. Here's our message to our friends in Israel. We stand. That's how this has to end. So we're here today to give Israel what they need to do the job of destroying the modern-day version of Nazis, Hamas. We're here today to tell Iran we're watching you.
There seems to be no end to the escalations as threat of a multi-front looms over Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while warning Hezbollah, said the Lebanon's militant group would make the mistake of its life if it starts a war with Israel. The Prime Minister said, "We will strike it with a force it cannot even imagine," while visiting troops in northern Israel near the Lebanon border. United States President Joe Biden reiterated that it will make sure Israel has what it needs to defend its people, while emphasizing that Israel must operate by the laws of war. He further stated that we cannot give up on a two-state solution. And in the latest, United States has also ordered non-emergency staff to leave Baghdad embassy. Meanwhile, Israeli ground offensive of the war-battered Palestinian enclave appeared imminent as formations of Israeli tanks and other military equipment were seen positioning around Gaza's border in southern Israel. Palestinians say that they had received renewed warnings from Israel's military to move from North Gaza to the south of the Strip. The warning added that they could be identified as sympathizers with a terrorist organization if they stayed put. More than 35,000 Palestinian refugees are now taking shelter at a tent camp in Khan Yunis city of southern Gaza. The situation is still devastated for these refugees. Now, according to a UNICEF official, 1 million children in Gaza need urgent protection. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has moved to step up its military readiness in the region. It is ordering activation of air defense systems throughout the region and alerting additional U.S. forces that they may be deployed soon. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said in a statement that the moves were in response to recent escalations by Iran and its proxy forces across West Asia. Austin, however, did not say how many additional U.S. troops will be deployed to that region. Israeli aircraft struck a compound beneath a mosque in West Bank, Jenin. Israel said that it was being used by militants to organize attacks. Israel claimed that dozens of Hamas terrorists were killed during the overnight raids that they launched inside the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Hamas said that at least 55 people were killed in an overnight raid on the Gaza Strip. Hundreds of demonstrators, including families of those missing after the October 7th Hamas attacks, protested in central Tel Aviv, demanding the government to take immediate action to return their loved ones being held hostage by Hamas. Hamas had earlier claimed that they were willing to release 2 more hostages on humanitarian grounds, but that Israel declined to receive them. Israel replied on the comments, saying that it was propaganda. At the same time, Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, on a phone call with his Malaysian counterpart, said that China will always support the legitimate aspirations of Arab and Islamic countries. Wang Yi's call to Zambri Abdul Kadir came as China continued to actively engage senior officials and diplomats around the world in an effort to mediate the crisis. Earlier, a peace summit was held in Egypt's capital, Cairo, to discuss the Israel-Hamas conflict. It aimed at de-escalating the conflict and providing humanitarian aid for civilians in the Gaza Strip. While Arab and Muslim states called for an immediate end to Israel's offensive, Western countries mostly voiced more modest goals such as humanitarian relief for civilians. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres had made a visit to the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza in a bid to get aid flowing into Gaza. He talked about the visit.
Yesterday, I went to the Rafah border crossing. There I saw a paradox, a humanitarian catastrophe playing out in real time. On the one hand, I saw hundreds of trucks teeming with food and other essential supplies. On the other hand, we know that just across the border there are 2 million people without water, food, fuel, electricity and medicine. Children, mothers, the elderly, the sick. Full trucks on one side, empty stomachs on the other.
On Saturday, 20 trucks carrying aid crossed into Gaza. This is the first convoy of humanitarian supplies since Israel began its siege 12 days ago. As the conflict escalates, residents of northern Israel and both sides of Israel-Lebanon border are now fearful of a second front of conflict escalating. This comes as Israel said its aircraft struck Hezbollah targets in Lebanon on Saturday and that one of its soldiers was hit by an anti-tank missile, while the Iran-backed group said that the strike killed 6 of its fighters. Israel is facing strong opposition from the United States, which also fears a two-front war which would risk igniting a major regional conflict. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.